This is Peter, our hero, our villain, our victim. Today in this video sponsored by Squarespace, Peter is trying out some new fancy Japanese pencils that he just bought. Wow, would you look at those? So shiny, so new. Congratulations on those, Peter. This guy doesn't even know how to draw with pencils. Why'd he spend so much on them? These are like $2 each. How much is that for the whole set? Anyways, he needs to sharpen them, so he gets out the pencil sharpener. But then he wonders, is this really the best way to sharpen his $2 each pencils? No. He needs to practice on some other pencils. So he gets out his Box O practice pencils for practicing sharpening. And he starts first with the Kum Long Point Pencil Sharpener, the old tried and true method of sharpening pencils. And yeah, it works. The pencils get sharp, actually very sharp, but is there a better way? Maybe there is. So he goes back to the old-fashioned elbow grease-powered pencil grinder type thing. This worked for him when he was a kid in school. It should work for him now, but it doesn't. It's extremely frustrating and hard to use, maybe because it wasn't properly mounted to the table. Regardless, he quickly gives up and moves on to the next option. Modern electric power. This is more like it. Now he has to be in the lap of electric pencil sharpening luxury and bliss. But no, he doesn't like this either. It feels soulless, and the pencils come out with a weird texture. Sometimes they're uneven. So he thinks, how about something a little more soulful, a little more hands-on? He whips out a carving knife he bought, something Swedish and exotic. But even when he gets to choose each individual cut that is made, it's not quite what he wants. It's slow and painstaking, and he can see the appeal of this and how it would be useful in some situations, but this is not what he's looking for right now. So it's time to take it up a notch. That's right, it's time for power tools. He finds an attachment for his electric drill, an attachment which, after donning some safety glasses, allows him to harness this rotary power and shred pencils at never-before-seen rates. It also leaves them very sharp and short. Sharp and short and shredded. And while this is very cool and he appreciates the power behind this method, and he thinks maybe he could do this in his free time, just because it creates lots of cool shavings, he doesn't know if he wants to have to clamp down a pencil every time he wants to sharpen it. And he's afraid of holding the pencil in his hand while it's sharpened by this power tool, lest something awful happen and he loses all the skin on his fingers. So he had one last thing he could try. A small, custom-made belt sander, possibly made just for situations such as this. Would it work? He figured out how to put the belt on there, fired it up, and applied the pencil to the machine. Now, he had to admit, this was nice. This was maybe the pinnacle of pleasure, the apex of amusement, the epitome of enjoyment. There was something so satisfying about grinding the pencil away on this little belt sander. He even got so carried away that he swapped out the current fine grit sandpaper he was using for a much grittier, rougher sandpaper, which was almost totally useless as far as making nice pointed pencils, but was very useful for just destroying pencils in a very satisfying way. And he did that for a little while because he had a lot of practice pencils, which were really now just as lambs to the slaughter before his tiny belt sander. But yes, he soon came to his senses and realized that perhaps while this is a nice activity for a lazy Sunday afternoon, it's not really the best way to sharpen a pencil. And he thought back to the beginning of his day, when he was sharpening pencils with that little handheld manual pencil sharpener, and how well that worked. And how sharp the pencils were, and how satisfying it was, and how well it worked, and how sharp the pencils were, and how well it worked, and how satisfying it was, and how well it worked. And so, content that he had tried out enough alternative pencil sharpening methods, he settled back with the Coom pencil sharpener. Full name Coom AS2 two-hole automatic long point pencil sharpener, manufacturing part number 1053021. Extra lids not included. It's interesting that it's called automatic when it's all very manual. It's got two holes. The first one shaves away the wood. The second hole points the lead. And it works well. And he was content with it and happy with it for the rest of his days, forever and ever, happily ever after. So I warmed up by using the pencils in a small Squarespace. Squarespace, by the way, is a wonderful service you can use to buy domains, host websites, design your websites. It comes with a whole bunch of really pretty templates to get you started that look modern and polished. A lot of people put off getting their own website because, rightly so, it can be a big headache sometimes. But Squarespace makes it very easy as they do all the hard work for you, making sure everything runs and functions well. And then all the fun stuff is left to you. So go to squarespace.com for your free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/PeterDraws for 10% off your first website or domain. Why aren't you out there? There could and should be a you.com, a you and whoever you are and whatever you're up to.com. All right, so about these pencils, if you've watched my channel for very long, you know that I don't usually draw in pencil, and so it's an adjustment, right? And that's normal, that's natural for it to feel a little bit weird to draw in something where I'm used to drawing in pen, and it's just an absolute shade of black or whatever ink I've put into the pen or the fountain pen, although sometimes there are variations in the amount of ink that comes out or settles into the line, but still a pencil is a lot different. And so I'm going to do like 3 different little drawings or sketches here, and I'm going to tell you, I liked it. It felt good. I'm looking forward to doing more pencil drawings. The things I mainly don't like about doing pencil drawings is I need to figure out something. I don't think I want to do these pencil drawings in a sketchbook. I think I need to do it on loose leaf paper, because if I do a one pencil drawing, I turn a page, I just don't like how the pages touch each other, and then the pencil, the graphite, right, it rubs off from one page into the next one that's touching it. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to combat this, such as using fixatives, like sometimes people spray things on there, like a little, sometimes people even just use hairspray, but there's also artists' fixatives, things intended for this, or people just put another piece of paper in between, or a little piece of like tracing paper or tissue paper. It's just kind of annoying. I don't know, but just like the nature of a sketchbook is that the pages get pressed together, especially if you're drawing on other pages near it. I don't know. That part bothers me, so if I do this more, I have to think about this. Yeah, so I bought these hi-uni, I don't know if that's how you say it, Mitsubishi Pencil Art Set. And, it's just, I guess Mitsubishi is just one of those companies, Asian companies that just makes all sorts of different things. But this is called a 22-degree set. And that's a pretty broad range. It goes all the way from 10H to 10B, and they're even called lead grades, even though I'm sure we all know by now that there's not actually lead in these. I don't think there ever really was lead in pencils, except maybe way back in the Roman times there maybe were lead pencils, but according to Wikipedia, there were records of people getting lead poisoning from pencils, but this was only because there was lead paint on the outside of pencils, and then people would just get it through their fingers, or because they would, you know how some of us like chewing on pencils, randomly putting them in our mouths for no reason other than we have some sort of oral fixation. But yeah, they would get lead poisoning from the paint on the pencils. But I was surprised to find out that the lead, first time they started putting lead in lead pencils, it came from one mine in England, called the Grey Knots Mine. And it says this particular deposit of graphite was extremely pure and solid, could easily be sawn into sticks. It remains the only large-scale deposit of graphite ever found in this solid form. So you're thinking maybe do all pencils come from there? Oh, I think for a long time they did, but it turns out that, for example, to get 22 grades or degrees of pencil hardness here, like for here in this case, I have like 9H to 10B. The H stands for hardness, the B stands for blackness. Then the closer you get to the middle, as it goes to like 7H, 3H, H, it starts getting, the less hard it gets, the more dark it gets, right? The more black, and then the higher the B number gets, from B to 2B to 5B to 10B, the blacker it gets. And even past like 10B, it just starts going like BB, BBB. Basically, they start mixing clay in with graphite dust to get these different degrees. And what's his name? Hartmut. I don't know how to say it. The guy who started the Kohinoor company, and that's a very popular and long-standing brand of pencils, technical pens. That guy, I think, is one of the ones who came up with that initial technique for mixing clay and other stuff to make these different degrees of pencil hardnesses. Yeah, right there in the middle between all the different B's and H's is HB, which is a number 2 pencil. If you're American, you might have grown up using a number 2 pencil for doing test taking. They always, for some reason, they always specified use a number 2 pencil for bubbling in standardized tests. I guess it's just, well, standardized test. Use a standardized pencil. But interestingly enough, there's no standardized method between companies for the amount of, like the ratios of clay and graphite dust. So if you buy a number 2 pencil from one company and a number 2 pencil from another company, they could be different hardnesses. But I guess it's better than nothing. Who knows? So these worked pretty good. Another annoying thing about using pencils is I'm pretty used to drawing with a pen and not smudging a pen these days, just because I know I can write. I found good combinations of paper and ink that don't smudge once the ink is dry, and I just am conscious of not putting my hand on wet ink. But here with pencil, it never dries because it was never really wet, and it just smudges forever, right? And you can combat this a little bit by putting a piece of paper under your hand or putting like a little glove on or something, because things like cloth and paper do seem to smudge a little less than human skin, but still, these are some annoyances, some things I have to deal with and think about and cope with if I want to keep doing pencil drawings, because I know there's got to be a way. People do incredible pencil drawings that aren't completely covered in smudges, like I think mine would be if I didn't take these things into account, right? But yeah, they seem like really nice pencils. I think the Coom pencil sharpener really is a really decent way to sharpen the pencils, and it does bug me a little bit that there's an even number of the B pencils and H pencils, because the B pencils get used up way faster because they're softer. They're softer, so they draw darker lines. And they using them together, like if you draw a line with a 6H, a bunch of lines with 6H, and then lines on top of that with a 6B, it almost seems like oil and water. They seem like different materials. They don't blend together well at all, in my experience at least. Maybe it's the type of paper I'm using or something. Does anyone know what I mean by that? Like, I mean, I guess that's the whole point. One's gray and one's black, almost. I don't know. I'll have to experiment around with it more. Just kind of thinking out loud here. I don't know what the F, right smack dab in the middle near HB is also an F, which some people say stands for fineness, but that doesn't really make sense. In Japan, some people say it means firm, but it's just right there in the middle. It's kind of a medium hardness next to HB, and a number 2 pencil. It's like a number 2.5 pencil. Anyways, I have a lot of pencils now. I'll try to use them. I have fun with them. Yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching. Love you. Bye.